hello everyone. Welcome back to our second season of the Hilltop podcast. Today we're branching out, and this season we'll be branching out to include some notable Chaminade alums from over the years. And so we're joined today by Gavin Woolley, one of our great Chaminade alums. Gavin, thanks for being here.
I don't know how great it is, but thank you for welcoming me.
Definitely. Certainly a notable person around these parts. So thanks for joining us. You're certainly, I'm going to start not quite at the beginning with you, but you're certainly known as sort of a very much of a Chaminade sports fan, a Chaminade fan in general, big member of the Gray Army. You're here all the time.
Absolutely.
That's how I've gotten to know you. So what keeps you coming back? Why are you here, many years after you graduated?
Well, it's for one thing, you see fabulous athletes. I think everybody's familiar with Jason Tatum's story this past summer, Matthew Tkachuk, and Bradley Beal. There've been and even the guys that aren't professional. There have been just so many talented young men pass through the corridors of this operation.
Sounds good. And you were certainly one of them yourself, right?
Well,
that defines you completely, but you certainly made your name here as an athlete yourself, right?
I played football here, and somehow or another that I played it well enough that they put me in the Hall of Fame. I think my claim to fame, as far as the Hall of Fame is concerned, is I was the first all-state football player here, and. That being said, there were a lot of guys before me who were a whole lot better.
Sure. Well, let's jump back now to the very beginning. Let's get a little bit of your biography, kind of before Chaminade. Were you born in St. Louis, and you lifelong St. Louis? And kind of give us that background of your birth, the early years of Gavin Woolley.
I am a lifelong resident of Washington, Missouri, a little river town. Well, it's a bigger river town than when I grew up, but about 50 miles west of St. Louis on the Missouri River.
Gotcha. Awesome. And what was family life for you like? Do you have siblings?
Family life was, very, very typical. One father, one mother, one sister, and two brothers.
Sounds good. Now, did they go to Chaminade as well, too?
My two brothers did go. My brother George was 4 years older than me. He graduated in the spring of 1965, and I walked in the fall of 1965. So we did not cross. We were not here together.
Sure. Gotcha. And what was young Gavin up to? Were you an athlete then too? Was that what your interest lied your whole life?
Athlete is a stretch. Athlete. I was a right fielder in baseball. Gotcha. That gives you a little idea. If that gives you a little idea, but started playing Corey League baseball, third, fourth grade, something like that. Always the last guy picked on the sandlot, et cetera, et cetera. But in seventh grade, football came around. And some of the guys that gave me an awful hard time in baseball and basketball paid a price on the football field.
Very good, very good. So what was life, you mentioned, certainly Washington bigger these days than it was then. What was life like in Washington, Missouri in the 50s, 60s?
My mode of transportation was a 3-speed bicycle. I cruised everywhere in town that I needed to go. Went to St. Francis Borgia Grade School, taught by the nuns, and went to the swimming pool every day in the summertime. As I said, I liked playing baseball. I just wasn't very good at it. So, there was stuff we did all summer long.
Sure. So how do you get from Washington to Missouri to here at Chaminade? What's the connection? Or obviously your older brother was here, but what was the initial connection for the family?
My dad's a St. Louis guy. He was born and raised in St. Louis, and the story I tell is that my dad went to CBC his freshman year. Absolutely hated it. Absolutely hated it. Transferred to St. Louis U High. Was very, very happy there, but he had the wisdom to send his 3 sons to Chaminade.
Well, why is that? What was the change? I know you're kind of joking, but why didn't you go to SLU, for instance?
Well, because we lived in Washington, and Chaminade offered the boarding program.
So it was the boarding program,
yes.
right? That's what sold him, and sold you on it as well, too, right? Mm-hmm. So what was it, to just jump into that first, then what was it like living on campus? Certainly away from home for the first time. And
yep.
I know you weren't incredibly far away from home, but you were certainly
you left home either on Sunday night or Monday morning and came into St. Louis to the dorm, and you know, it was very strict. You know, versus a day student, we were under the watchful eyes of the brothers 24 hours a day. Right. And back then, corporal punishment, you know, it was an accepted practice.
Sure.
You know, so, several of the brothers, you know, used paddles, and you know, it was given.
Gotcha. So obviously your brother had been through here, but he was gone by the time you got here, right? So
correct.
Did you know anyone else, or was it sort of just,
well,
just
I didn't really know him. I remember some of the like seniors that my brother had played football with. Gotcha. A classmate of my brother George's was Tom Hacker, and he had a younger brother the same age as me. Tom would come out on weekends and stay with us, and he'd tell me stories about his younger brother. You know, oh, you're going to meet this guy in a while, and you blah blah blah. So when I walked in the dorm freshman year, I met Bill Hacker, Tom's younger brother, and the only person that I met who I knew prior to meeting him.
Gotcha. Exactly. So what was young Gavin thinking? Was this a whole new big world for you?
Oh, absolutely.
Can you put yourself back in that mindset and tell us a little bit about what 14-year-old, 13-year-old Gavin was thinking?
It was a long time ago, but you know, put your nose to the grindstone and figure out what you got to do.
Sure. Sounds good. So what were you involved? Obviously, we'll get to football in a second, but outside of football, what else did you get involved with here at school, and what was kind of, you know, your MO here at Chaminade? Well,
according to Don Olms, you could not be a football player without being an athlete. So, you know, you had to do track. And to back up a little bit, in order to play football, you had to have grades. You know, you didn't play football without having acceptable grades. So that meant doing the work. And 4 years at Chaminade, the first quarter were always my best grades, because I knew, you know, I had to manage my time with football and also with my classes.
Sure. And so, in terms of track, what did you do? Do you remember what events or what?
No. Charlie Selberg and I spent a lot of time just on the north side of Cemetery Lane under a shade tree.
Gotcha.
we were the only people over there, and every now
how'd you get away with that?
Don Olms was on the track, and the other assistant coaches were over on the track coaching everyone. And every now and then, you know, he'd come over, but we had a good view. We saw when he was coming, and we'd get up and we'd start throwing.
So he'd forget about you, right?
Yeah.
So, but you were a thrower, obviously. That was your main thing that you were doing. You're supposed to be doing.
It was mainly something, you know, just to stay in shape.
Sure.
You know, after throwing, then we'd have to run, you know, laps and everything to, you know, as part of the team.
Sure. So you mentioned your grades and having to obviously keep your grades up for football and being challenged. What do you remember about the academics at that time? Some of the teachers maybe that stood out to you?
Walter Risch was probably my favorite classroom teacher.
Name I haven't heard.
Ah, really?
Tell us about
Walter Risch was a wonderful man. He had played in the Dodgers minor league system, and Walter was a stout man. He wasn't a big man, but he kept himself in real good shape. He helped coach football. He was our B team coach, and when we went up to varsity, he came along with us. And that was also the year Ed Donahue joined the staff. But he was also a biology teacher, and probably my favorite class in the 4 years that I was here. I mean, he taught it in such a fashion that, you know, I want to learn this. I want to know what this is all about.
Sure. Now, what I don't expect you to remember exactly, but like, what was the ballpark percentage between lay teachers and brothers when you were here in terms of staff?
Very, very strong in favor of the Marianist. I would say the Marianists were over 80%.
Gotcha. Right. So he was obviously in the
the lay teachers, you know, stood out.
Right, for sure. in a good way. With that. So let's dig into football a little bit. So what position did you play, or mostly play? And
I was a single wing center, which is a designation that a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah. So let's tell us. I'm sure our audience today doesn't necessarily know the single wing. I kind of know it, but certainly not to the level of you do. Describe the single wing to us and why it was a big Don Olmsted, like why this was pretty unique. I mean, certainly other people ran it, but not.
That is correct. The single wing center, the single wing formation did not have a quarterback. We had two players, a fullback and a halfback, positioned about 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And as a center, you looked between your legs back every play, and there were different plays required different snaps. Sometimes you would snap it to the halfback. Sometimes you would snap it to the fullback. Sometimes you would snap it to the halfback, leading him as he was already in motion, beginning a sweep or something. And Don always said, as the center, you're a half a blocker. Your job is to get the ball back there and then block. Because and it's true today. It drives me crazy if a ball goes dribbling back. Especially now with the shotgun. If the ball goes dribbling back, or the ball's over here, it messes up the entire play. It doesn't work.
Now, how did that position find you, or how did you find that position? A lot of responsibility in that position.
My brother George played center, and I just gravitated toward it because of that. And I played it in grade school. I played center, and George, being on the varsity before I got here, told Coach Holmes that I was coming along.
So even before Chaminade, you were a center, like that was your spot.
Yeah,
I didn't know if you were somewhere else and they said, "Hey, we got some
skill."
Some
I was
particular talent.
I mean,
you had the talent, but it wasn't like they pulled that talent from somewhere else and they you filled in one day and then we found the guy. You were a center all along. Very good. So let's talk a little bit about Don Holmes before we talk about the rest of your career. Certainly a legend around these parts, football field named after him now, and certainly someone who wasn't here when he was here myself. Certainly I've heard tales of his sort of legendary impacts. How did he impact you personally?
He was just a great guy. He was just a great guy. Straightforward, no nonsense. One of the stories I tell about Don Holmes is that being a boarder, I didn't have access to a refrigerator on Friday night, and I got hungry. And a friend of mine picked me up, and we went up to Schneidhorst, which Don Holmes got word of from Brother David O'Hearn, the boarder prefect. And I walked into the locker room that next Saturday afternoon we only played afternoon games, and Coach Holmes goes, "Woolley, get into my office." And he goes, "What's this I hear you were up at Schneidhorst last night?" Oh. And I explained to him, I said, "Coach, I was hungry. I went up there, I got a hamburger, cheeseburger maybe, and I came home." I said, I don't have a kitchen available." He goes, "Okay, don't let it happen again." But Don Holmes was also a single wing center himself.
Oh, was he?
So he had a certain fondness for his centers.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. What in terms of football, still sticking on Don Holmes himself, why did he think that was successful? Why is the single wing the thing, and how did it help bring success to Chaminade maybe in those years?
He had played it at Washington U under a gentleman by the name of Snavely. I can't recall his first name, but he became enamored with it and thought it was the way to go. Now, my dad always said the single wing offensive prowess, or whatever you want to call it, the success, didn't gel until about the fourth game of the season. And you can look in the yearbook at the scores of games and see, 6 points, 7 points, 13 points, the first couple weeks. End of the season, 30, 40, you know, and we got it down.
And is that just because of the timing?
Yes, absolutely,
about, right?
Absolutely.
Everybody
The
has his job
schematic,
to do, right?
very much schematic blocking. A lot of double teams, mismatches, an unbalanced line, a guard and an end on one side of the center, and 2 guards, a tackle, and a tight end on the other side.
Gotcha. Now, how was the squad during your 4 years here? What kind of success or lack of success did the team have in general?
Freshman year we were okay. Junior year or sophomore year we were 6-1. We allowed Ritter to run a punt back on a ball that was, you know, it was laying on the ground. I was one of the guys. We were standing around the ball looking at it. Nobody downed it. A young Rittner player came up, scooped the ball up, and ran it in for a touchdown. And that was our only loss of the season. Oh, wow. Yeah, that hurt.
Donald's not probably too happy.
Well, he wasn't. That Walter Risch was the coach of that team.
Gotcha.
But I'm sure Don Holmes knew about it.
Gotcha. And then how about your senior year? How'd you guys finish up?
Let me go back to junior year.
Okay. Yep.
Let me go back to junior year, because I always say our junior year, which was the fall of 1967, I'll put that team up against any team in this school's history, including the state championship team.
Sure.
We lost 2 games. The first was one where I'm sure you've heard of Mike McKee.
I heard that name. I don't know.
Mike McKee was the best player I played with or saw coming through Chaminade as far as I was concerned. And he got injured in preseason practice, did not play the first game. And as physical as the game of football is, there's a lot that goes on up here. Sure. It's very, very mental as well. And Mike did not play that first game, and we had it, you know, like, what are we going to do without him? He's our leader. He's our star. And we lost to McBride 9-6. Yeah. And the other game we lost that season was to Augustinian, no longer in business, and we lost to them 12-6. So we lost 2 games that season by 9 points. And
it's tough. And was that the year you were all states? So
no, that was the following year. That was my junior year.
Gotcha.
It was the following year, the fall of 1968.
Gotcha.
That after the season I was named all state.
Awesome. Very good.
And why?
I think we mentioned this earlier, but the first for Chaminade, right?
Correct. And I can still, you know, you asked me, you know, what do you remember? This is one of my most vivid memories of Chaminade is Don Holmes coming into the cafeteria at lunchtime one day. He never came to the cafeteria during the day. He goes, "Woolley, get over here." And usually I use imitate his voice a little better.
Sure.
But he came over and he said, "You know, you've been named to the All-State team. Congratulations. There's a photographer from the Globe Democrats going to come tomorrow and take your picture. I want you to get a haircut." I said, "Well, okay. Well, you know, I'm a boarder. I don't have access to a barber shop. No way to get there." So I asked Brother John McCarthy, "Brother John, I need a haircut." The worst haircut I ever got in my life. And it is, the clippings in the paper prove it.
It's memorialized forever. That's what I was just going to say, for sure. Very good. So before we sort of move on from Chaminade, I'd love to get a little sense of, obviously the campus has had a lot of evolution.
Oh my gosh.
What was for, you know, maybe some of our younger listeners or current students, what was the campus like in terms of physical structures, in terms of the space and such at that point?
Well, obviously the school building was there, but it you know, pretty much different then than, you know, there weren't offices in it other than the principal's office. I guess there was a principal's office. I was never sent there. Never sent there.
Who was the principal during your time?
Brother John Haug was principal, I think junior and senior year. Bill Tuning, a brother Bill Tuning, was the principal freshman and sophomore year. So that, you know, that was very much, you know, austere. The cafeteria was in the basement, and then, you know, obviously being a boarder, that was breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then the first floor, there were some offices there, a couple classrooms, and then the second and third floor were classrooms. The fourth floor was not used very much at all. I don't know that I've ever been up there.
Oh, really? So so between, because originally that was where the
residence correct,
was, right? Exactly.
Correct.
So I guess
correct.
Kind of in that between that time between when it was still a resident area and Canning Hall. You certainly lived in new Canning Hall, which is about to get replaced.
Canning Hall, is very much, we took a tour. I guess when we had our 50th reunion, they had us tour it. Very, very, very much the same as what it was when we were there. Of course, now that's all going to change big time.
Exactly. Beautiful building, open hopefully in a month or two. So, were there still horses and such on campus?
No, there were not. There were not horses. Where the old tennis. Well, actually, where I don't know what they officially call them. There's a swimming pool.
Right.
There was a swimming pool there along Cemetery Lane.
Still there.
The field house was there. That's where the freshman football team dressed for practice, and it was odorous.
Very good. So, just to skip out of Chaminade for at least a temporary, did you play football in college?
I did not.
That,
I did.
I was interest in that, or?
Yes and no. I was telling the story last night. We went up to Columbia for the Mizzou game last night. The Red Army or the Gray Army was present to watch Brady Cook, and I was telling the story about having been approached by Mizzou after my senior year. John Cadillac, Mr. Mizzou, he was referred to for years, came and talked to me. We sat basically right in this area in Waldron Hall, which the skip replaced, and had a great visit with him. But 2 or 3 weeks later, I got a letter. Thank you, Gavin, for your interest, but you ain't fast enough. You ain't big enough. And I kind of copped the attitude, well, if I can't play with the big boys, I'm not going to do it. So I had offers from the corner state schools, Springfield, Cape, Kirksville, and the one I think about most is Washington U. That probably would have been a pretty good fit. But I'm a firm believer that things happen for a reason. Would I be married to my wife? Would I have my daughter? Would I have my grandson and granddaughter? No, I'm happy where I am.
Very good. So where did you end up going? And
I went to the University of Dayton.
All right. Stayed in the Marinus family.
Stayed in the Marinus family.
And was that the call to Dayton? I mean, in terms of the Marinus, was that the connection there? Or?
No.
Gotcha.
No.
So what brought you to Dayton?
I had a girlfriend from Washington whose father was a government veterinarian, got transferred to Indianapolis. And Dayton was 100 miles to Indianapolis.
So a girl brought you there.
Yeah, yeah. And also the fact that I was accepted to Dayton prior to Thanksgiving my senior year, which made my senior year pretty easy.
Very good. So what happened to Dayton? What did you study? Where did it take you? I
studied political science. Had a great time there. Probably had too great of a time there. There were 16 of us from the class of 1969 that went to the University of Dayton. So we had a built-in web to where, you met so-and-so's roommate, you met everybody, you had a vast network of people immediately. And played intramural football there. Our sophomore year, we played in the championship game of the intramurals against the team of jocks who had been injured and could no longer play, but were still pretty good football players. And we gave them a heck of a fight, but we didn't win.
That came up just short. So after Dayton, what did career bring you?
I got to back up a little bit. After my sophomore year at Dayton, a friend of mine and I, David Noonan, who's also a class of '69, approached me and said, let's take a trip to Europe this fall. And so after a lot of prodding and thinking and pushing, we did it. We went to, we bought Eurail passes and traveled extensively, and came back and then went back to school at Dayton, finished the semester, but the interest had waned and just was not there as far as academics was concerned. So the following year, we had made a pact when we were there in '71 to, we went to a Cat Stevens concert, and afterwards we were just kind of wandering around, ended up on the hillside watching the Olympic Village being built. Wow. And we made a pact that we were going to be there for opening day in 1972, and we kept that pact. Yeah. Yeah, we saw the cauldron go into the stadium.
Very cool. And what city was that again?
That was in Munich.
In Munich, that's right. That's
yeah. We were there before the terrorism struck,
right.
And you know, it was a very expensive city at that time, and we were meeting other people later. So we went down to Greece and had no idea that the terrorism had occurred.
So you mentioned your interest. Did you end up graduating from Dayton?
I did not. I did not.
Let's continue that story. So your academics.
My academics are waning, but I went up to Mizzou in an attempt to resurrect my academic career. Did okay, but the interest just wasn't there.
Sure, sounds good. So then after Mizzou, where did life take you?
I stumbled into carpentry. You know, it was just, you know, hey, it was after I had gotten back from the Olympics. I ran into a friend of mine and asked him, you know, hey, I need a job, you know anybody that's hiring? And he said, well, so-and-so is is working on a log building on the east end of Washington. Go out and talk to him. So I went out there the next morning and talking to the gentleman, and he said, yeah, Steve didn't show up, the friend that I had been talking to the night before. He had gotten lucky. And he said, yeah, you can have Steve's job. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. Well, I like the way you think on that. You can go to work right now. I said, well, how about tomorrow? but that was the beginning of a career in restoring old log buildings and timber frame barns and whatnot. That was the vast majority of my working career.
Interesting. So, and was that sort of mostly in that Washington area? Were you traveling all over?
We did not travel all over. It was basically central Missouri, Franklin County, Warren County, St. Charles County, Gasconade County. You know, a couple trips outside of that area occasionally, but for the most part, day in and day out was pretty local.
So you're sort of finding old structures, rehabbing old structures?
Yes. You know, at that, you know, when we first started, you know, you could drive down a country road and with a trained eye, a building that was all covered with clapboard and siding and everything else, the shape, the position of the windows, a chimney, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, that's a log building.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Side note, but there's the show Barnwood Builders. Do you watch that now?
Yes, sir.
Is that what you were doing?
Yeah, that's pretty. That's similar? the best description.
I watch that occasionally when I'm flipping through the channels on TV.
Yeah. They waste a lot more material than we ever did. Johnny Jet, the guy on the the guy on the skid steer or forklift and everything. When they take roofs off, they take them off mechanically, where we took them off all by hand, saving material.
Gotcha. And you were in the middle of it, doing the work. Right?
Oh yeah. No, this was not a supervisory capacity.
You were in it, and you obviously learned everything just by doing it.
Yeah,
right? I mean, you
that
had
is correct.
Working experience or anything like that. So gotcha. Interesting.
Worked with a lot of great carpenters who were, you know, kind enough, you know, hey, this is how you do this, you know, like fitting a board, a paneling board against an uneven log wall that just, you know, goes all over the place, you know, and teaching me how to scribe that first panel board and get it in there tight and also plumb.
Did you work with the same group or the same company for most of your time?
Basically, I worked for 2 companies in the log industry. Throughout the course of the my working career, I also framed modern houses occasionally, and worked with a fellow classmate here from Chaminade by my house. Worked with him for several years building playgrounds in the St. Louis area.
Interesting sort of background there. So you're retired now?
Retired.
How long you been retired?
Gosh, pretty close to 10 years.
All right. Good for you.
Very close to 10 years.
So what does retirement life lead you to? What do you
well, my best description of retirement life is that it is highly underrated. I do a lot of volunteer work. I'm on several boards in the city of Washington. I'm on the park board. There's a nature reserve that I'm on the board for that. I'm also on the Urban Tree Council, and do some maintenance work for them and everything. So, and other things that come up. If I've got time. Sometimes, I get approached, and sometimes I say yes, sometimes I say no, and sometimes I say maybe, which usually means no.
Beauty of retirement, right? Exactly.
That is right.
That is right. You can decide what you want to do. We kind of skipped past it a little bit, but tell us a little bit about your family. You mentioned a wife and a daughter and grandchildren, right? So where'd you meet your wife, and how'd that come
Well, as I say, growing up in a small town, how do you know somebody? Well, you know people. You don't know how you know them. You see them. Oh, I know. You just know them from being there. And I had admired her from afar, and asked her out once, and got turned down. But I persevered, and finally she came to see it.
She's a Washington gal.
She's a Washington gal as well.
Excellent. Very good.
And then
one daughter?
We have one daughter. She's a teacher in the University City School District. She lives in South St. Louis, so we're not very far. We're able to see Corey and Quentin, her husband, and our grandson Max, who I got written as part of my closing here. My hope for the future is that my grandson Maxwell Gavin Hamilton, who is currently a first grader, has the opportunity to attend Chaminade.
We hope so too. We hope there's certainly a spot for him here. I like his middle name too.
Yes, I'm proud of that.
Proud of that.
Very
for sure.
proud of that.
Exactly.
And then we also have a step granddaughter who is a freshman at Mizzou this year.
Awesome. Gotcha. A little Mizzou connection.
Yes. Saw her last night at the football game.
Okay, good deal. So we talked at the beginning that you're have been a regular in the stands for many years, I'm sure.
Yes.
So
yeah.
How did that sort of continue? I mean, was that sort of when you were back in town? You've been literally coming to games forever.
Pretty much. Not the extent I am now. But if there was a playoff football game or a big football game, you bet. I'd sit in the stands, cheer, and then have a visit with Coach Holmes afterwards. And Chaminade used to always play Borgia in football, and I had a friendly wager with some of the Washington town folks, and he was always telling me that he should get a cut of that.
Very good. And is there the Gray Army? I know is a bit sort of mythical, but is there a group? Who's the group that makes up the Gray Army?
The group that makes up the Gray Army, and I got to be careful here. Myself, Jack Shilas, Larry Bauman, Joe Berkey, Joe Corrado, Ron Rizika. Bob Myhouse does not like the terminology Gray Army. He thinks we're crazy, so he's not a member. But sometimes he comes. Sometimes he comes.
Very good. So
and then a Chaminade parent is oftentimes with us. Daniil Laverne Trout.
Right, exactly.
And
he's become maybe an honorary member. Or
nah, he's a member.
He's a full member.
He went to Mizzou with us last night.
Oh, gotcha. Very good. Yeah, exactly.
He and Jacoby Buchanan's dad, Rocky.
Exactly. Yep.
He went with us as well.
He went too. Awesome. Yeah, I know you guys have sort of adopted and welcomed them into the Grey Army.
Absolutely.
Not being alums, but they're
Right.
official members of the Grey Army as well too. So you guys have kept in very good touch with them, I know. As well. So, yeah, you got up to Mizzou to see our one of our favorites up there, Brady Cook.
Absolutely.
Had a good game last
I
night.
had a good game. Had a good game. You know, a few passes were a bit overthrown, but you know, he hit them when they counted.
He won a few of them back.
When you put up 51 points, you can't be real.
Exactly. It's gonna get a little more harder.
Yeah, it'll get a lot harder.
So, did we skip over anything? Any favorite Chaminade memories or stories that we want to memorialize, or that we should memorialize?
Well, I guess we should talk about the snow fights.
All right, let's hear it.
As a boarder, the first snowfall, the first snowfall, the seniors would take on the freshmen, sophomores, and juniors in a snow fight.
This is like a planned thing.
This is. Notice I didn't say snowball fight. This is snow fight. And when I was a freshman, one of the star football players, a fellow by the name of Bob Fox, picked me up by my ankles and deposited me in a plowed snow pile, head first. I mean, I'm in there, feet up, kicking, wondering if I'm going to die. And you know, it kind of set the stage. You know, it was all in fun.
Welcome to Chaminade.
Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly. It was all in fun. So when we're juniors, we're going to kick the seniors' butts. You know, there wasn't any doubt about it. I mean, we came over to Waldron and we opened up a basement window to their TV room and threw in snow, and they wouldn't come out. So the juniors took on the freshmen and sophomores, and it got a little out of hand, and Brother David O'Hearn was going to send us home that night, threatened. And when we came, he sent us to the dorm, and we were scared enough, we opened up the window and took the screen out in case we had to make an emergency exit.
Oh, wow. It did get serious. I hadn't heard about the snowball fights, and for some of these, or not snowball fights, snow fights. Yeah, whatever.
And it was a border. It wasn't, you know, the day street. It was after dark.
Right. Even more dangerous.
Yeah.
Very good. Anything else we missed? Any?
I don't.
About Don Holmes? Any other faculty staff?
Well, you know, we'd be remiss if we talk about Don Holmes and not mention the fact that in later years, it was after Don had passed, I was able to become friends with his wife, Joyce.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. I was in the process of hunting down football films and trying to get them transferred to CD. And I got wind that Joyce had a box full of the 8mm films. And I contacted her and went over to St. Charles, and she was gracious enough, you know, here they are, you know, have at it. And went through it and found, you know, a few of the films that I was interested, and did have them transferred. And talking with her daughter Dana after Joyce passed this past year, Dana told me this story. She goes, yeah, she goes, when you first approached Mom about getting those films, we looked at her, Mom, why are you letting a complete stranger come into your house? And she just matter-of-factly, well, he's one of Don's boys. He'll be fine.
Exactly. Good. Well, one of Don's boys, that's certainly a good way for you to be known. I'm sure it makes you proud to be thought of as one of Don's boys.
Absolutely.
For sure. So let's move on to kind of, as we wrap it up here, we have a tradition to have our final question, a little bit of a reflection on our school's motto, Estovir.
I got that.
Be a man. So I ask everybody, what does Estovir mean to you? You know, what significance has it had in your life? What does that phrase mean in your own opinion?
I'm going to refer to my cheat sheet here, if that's all right.
Of course it is.
Let's see. Family is what Estovir means to me. Both in past, you know, the faculty that was here when I was here, the students that were here when I was here, but Chaminade, just like a real family, is, you know, it's in a constant state of flux. You know, you lose members, you gain members. You know, some of the friendships that that I've been able to make, you know, through the years. I've got to go with my buddy Dave Nolda, and the gentleman that sent me over here to you from the school building, Todd Guidry, you know, who stepped in and doing just a fabulous job in Father Ralph's succession. Frank Bennett, the basketball coach, has been so kind to us. You know, Coach Torrey with the football program, and Tom Fernandez, the athletic director. Ran into Phil Rohn in Columbia last night. Always and also ran into him at the Washington, Missouri Town and Country Fair this summer. You know, it's as I say, you know, a state of flux, but it's constantly growing, and the family continues on.
Wonderful. That's a good, very good reflection on that, and certainly. Not knowing you personally that much, but certainly knowing your presence here for the 12 years I've been around, seeing you all the time, and we certainly appreciate that. And for even someone like me who's here every day, it's great to see the folks come back and the continuing. Obviously, Chaminade's meant a lot in your life, and it's
absolutely
to see you coming back and continuing to pass that on to the next generation of the family. So, thanks again for joining us.
Well,
Gavin,
thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. Let's go Red Devils. Let's get a victory tonight.
Amen. We're filming this on Friday afternoon before a game, so we're going to get a victory
absolutely
tonight. So thank you also for joining us on our first episode of Season 2 of The Hilltop.